What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ, Bucky, and our good friend Tom Telesco joining us today. Tom, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, excited. I mean, we were just sitting here chatting before we went on about, how underratedly long the NFL season is in comparison to the other football that we're around. High school football pretty much wrapping up. We've got college football heading towards championship weekend, but man, there's a lot of NFL football left.
Yeah, that's the one thing with rookies when they come in the league, to try and explain to them how long this league really is. Because essentially right now we're at the midway point of this year. Yeah, if you're a high school player, your season is either ended or you have 1 or 2 weeks left. If you're a college player, you're getting ready for conference championship games and potentially a bowl game. But as far as they have this many regular season games left, and these are the most important games right now as you get towards the playoffs.
Yeah, looking forward to some of these meaningful matchups. In terms of the scouting thing, by the way, real quick, we'll get to a bunch of other topics I want to get to on the NFL side of things. But, man, this is the time of year where I'm just starting to jump into the college guys. And you just, before I watch the tape, let me call and at least get some measurables on some of these guys. It has not changed over the years, man. The listed measurables versus the verified measurables is still a Grand Canyon-esque gap between those that still exist.
Yeah, of course. All the way back to high school when you get the height, weights, and speeds on players, and then it goes into college recruiting, and then, strength coaches are great at colleges. They do a tremendous job, but a lot of numbers you get from the schools are kind of juiced. As far as 10 times, 40 times, bench presses, short shuttle, 3-cone, and even height and weights. But to me, I mean, that's verified information is so important when you start watching these players. Like, I need to know, like, if an offensive tackle, is he 285 or is he 305? That's a big difference. So having the real numbers is important.
Tom, it's funny. The other day, DJ and I were talking about body types, and I was on the field before we played the Texans, and I was looking at Danielle Hunter and just how big and how long he is. Do you still find value in that when scouts go on the road and they're doing those first school visits to body type the players? So you're talking about the verifies, but also to be able to give you a visual depiction of what a player looks like on the hoof.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's that's one of the area scouts. One of their biggest jobs is to paint a picture of the player as if I haven't seen them yet, or as if their college director has not seen them yet, or the head coach. So, and part of that is just kind of describe the body type. Now, just because a player is long and looks great doesn't mean he's going to be a great player, but it still kind of gives us a visual of what that player can be, good or bad. And then it used to be, probably not as much so now, to try and give us a feel of, can this player put on weight on his frame? But it does seem like the way colleges are nowadays, between their training tables and their strength and conditioning programs, most players that we receive from Division I certainly are what they are at this point, body-wise. I think 30 years ago was different, where you have a tackle maybe weighs 285, and you can get another 15, 20 pounds on him. That's probably one of the bigger parts of live scouting, certainly at a game or a practice.
Yeah, it turns out not having to go to class is a way to meet your physical potential in college now. Some of the changes over the years. Hey, it's all online. It's all being done above board. I'm not throwing any lobs there. Buck, I was talking to Tom a little bit before you popped on, and I wanted to have this conversation with you as well. But I was listening to an interview the other day with a former manager in baseball, and they were asking him about the changes in baseball from when he began 25 years ago to where it is now. And he was referencing the influential voices, where it used to be more of a small circle, and now all these other different departments in terms of sports performance, in terms of, obviously your pitching group, your hitting group, they have offensive coordinators now in baseball. They have, all the advanced stuff, all the analytics, all the technology that's been incorporated into this. And so that circle of influence has really grown. And I thought when we got Tom on here, someone who's been a GM for 2 different teams, Tom, I'm curious, how does the NFL compare in that way? And how did it change from when you first started to where you were last year?
Well, I know I had a chance to sit in some different baseball draft meetings, once with the Padres when Josh Burns was the GM, and then once with the Angels when Billy Epler was there. And yeah, their departments are certainly, they have more people. They have more, they have to scout more players. So they have more area scouts, they got more directors, but then they have more departments really than the NFL does. But I think even in the NFL, you're taking a lot of opinions from a lot of people. So initially your group is very large as far as who you're talking to. And then, and I learned this from Bill Pulling, as you get towards the end of the process, when you're making the decision on the players, that's more of a small group discussion involving the head coach, maybe your college director, player personnel director. and the GM. But when you're starting initially, I mean, there's a lot of voices in it. I mean, if you just look at area scouts, regional scout, director of college scouting, and then you look at assistant coaches, coordinators, head coaches, and then you talk about the information you receive from your strength coaches. I like to always hear about body types from them, lean weights, body, that sort of thing. Doctors, medical. We have a ton of meetings with our team doctors to go over all the durability, all the character things that we receive from our security department, psychological testing. So there's a lot of things that go into getting all the information together on the player, and then on the back end in a smaller group, taking all that information together, kind of put a bow around it and try and make a decision on players.
So, Tom, because you talk about like how vast that conversation is, so many people, so many voices. When do you have to move all those people out of the room so you can get with the smaller guys? Is there like a time frame, like the beginning of April? When are you trying to like eliminate some of the outside noise?
Yeah, that's a great point. I wanted all of that done by April 1st. Because a lot of the information you're receiving on the back end, not so much the player evaluation information, you have that already, but a lot of the medical and the character and the psychological testing and even like the evals from your coaches. I want to make sure I have that by April 1st. And then we'll go to a small group and put that together. Now, what I had done, and this could be right, could be wrong, when I would meet with the strength coaches or I'd meet with the doctors or meet with the college scouts or the coaches, I did it all separately, kind of in a vacuum. I wanted to hear their opinions. I didn't want them influenced by anybody else. So we would do all those meetings separately with those groups. And then, I would tie it all together in the back end. And sometimes you'd have some question on somebody and we'd bring somebody in and kind of bounce some things off them. But it's a large amount of information to go through. And every year it seems like it's more and more. And part of the job is trying to figure out what information really doesn't factor. So let's just throw that out and just stick with the information we know that factors for us, and trying to make the highest odds decision we can on a player.
I've thought about this the other day, and I don't know that we've ever had this discussion. And I know the three of us have talked so much over the years about, scouting and where it's going and innovation and those things. I was thinking about this. Tom, we'd always say, guys are better at evaluating certain positions. You have the same scouts for a period of time. Some guys are just going to have a more, favorable outcome when they're watching wideouts, and maybe they don't, do as well when they're doing linebackers. And you can assign guys different positions based off their strength and their hit record over the year. But then there's also been times where we would talk about, this guy's a really good evaluator, but he's not great on background. And maybe this scout is awesome in terms of getting background information, but we don't necessarily trust his grades. Are you surprised? And maybe some team has done this, but I almost wonder why you almost look at it as two different jobs and say, we're going to send our best background guys. Don't even worry about giving us your tape work. We're going to the school. You guys have these sources that you've been able to accumulate over the years, and let's get you in there, get as much information as you can, and let's get you out of there. You could cut the day in half, really, and then get you out to the next place to go gather more information, and maybe some of the other guys are doing more of the tape work.
It sounds good on the surface. I would worry about morale by telling an area scout, hey, look, you are great on background, but you kind of suck at the eval portion. So I just want you to go into the schools and just talk to people. So I think, putting together a scouting staff is not a lot different than putting a team together. So trying to make sure because look, there's no perfect players, there's no perfect coaches, there's no perfect GMs. There's no perfect scouts all the time. So yeah, you do get a feel for different scouts, who's better than others. Some like inherently, maybe one guy's a little better on the offensive line. So if you're in a scouting meeting and we're talking about an offensive lineman, maybe that guy hasn't seen him. I'll say, hey, so-and-so, why don't you go watch him and just, next time you come in the meeting, come in, give me your thoughts. There's a little bit of a cross check. And the same with even background information. If there's a piece of information I feel like we don't have, then, you maybe send a guy on a special assignment. Hey, I want you to go do a little special work on this player to try and help us out, try and answer some of these questions. But it's a puzzle you're constantly trying to put together.
Did you ever have anybody, though, where you might have one guy who's just an animal in terms of going in there and unearthing information and say, hey, we've got some conflicting information on this player. We don't have a great feel for him. I know you're in this role in this part of the country, or hey, we need you to get on a plane and get down to, Iowa to give us, a real take on this player.
Maybe not so much putting him on a plane to go somewhere, but when I was with the Chargers, we had area scout. I think he's still there, Chris Hobbs. Mm-hmm. He had great people skills, and he just had a way of pulling information out of people. So he was one of those scouts that I knew whatever information we're getting from the West Coast on those players, like that was rock solid. Like I didn't have to worry about going anywhere else to get the information because he just had a great feel for it. And some people, it's just in their personalities that are just really good at unearthing and just. And that's the other thing is the longer you're in an area, the more you know the coaches, the more they trust you, that information that they give the area scout will go to the club, but won't leave us. Like we got to make sure that, because that's, information that shouldn't be public, but it's information that we need. And we have to make sure we protect that the best we can, or else you go back to that school and they're not going to tell you the truthful information.
Tom, this is all fascinating because it kind of reminds me of the initial years of scouting.
We're getting PTSD, Buck. We're gonna start shaking here.
No. But like when you're getting trained, because I do think there is an art to it where you naturally have an eye, but there's a lot of training that goes into teaching somebody how to be a scout. Tom, how much time did you guys spend on really training your scouts in terms of not only what you're looking for, but the entire process of being a scout beyond just evaluating the tape, but all of the other things that go with it?
Yeah, it's that's part of the director of college scouting's job, the director of player personnel, his job, to a certain extent, the GM's job, is they really have to teach, especially your younger scouts. They usually start out as scouting assistants, where part of that job is they're in the office so they can kind of learn. But there's certainly an art to it. And even as far as gaining information, we talk about, going into a school and getting background on players. We brought in a private investigator who I've known way back for 30 years named Richie Taffet. And he was basically a PI. And he gave our scouting staff a presentation on how to ask the right questions to make sure you pull that information out. He was outstanding at it. So we'd do different things like that. Every training camp, it was a big time to try and go through and just talk about each position group, what we're looking for, and what it looks like. But it's that's all the director's jobs and GM job is to keep developing your younger scouts when they come in the organization.
Yeah, well, I've long been fascinated by the questions. What are the right questions to get to some interesting answers to at least learn something about somebody. So the one that we've been using lately is one that I picked up from my buddy Ken Coleman, who's in the leadership space, Tom. So we asked Keekly this; he gave us a great answer. But I'll ask you this: as someone who's been a general manager, what ticked you off?
Are you talking about in a scouting meeting, or just like when we were talking to a player?
It could be in life. It's an open-ended question. That's why it's such a great question, because you can take it. Let me give you. I'll give
you're right.
You
can answer that 1,000 different ways. You're right.
That's why you learn about somebody, because we asked Keekly this, right? He's retired. Hey, as a player, what really ticked you off? He said, "Oh, guys that weren't locked in walkthroughs would drive me nuts. Like, this is not a waste of time. Be focused, worrying about your assignment, know what you're supposed to do, take the right step. Like, this is not just something you roll your eyes, chew bubble gum, and get through. Like, you've got to be locked in." And when guys weren't locked in at walkthroughs, it would drive him bonkers. So that's one way of answering that question. But I think it's a way to, it's an open-ended question. Guys can take it anywhere they want to take it.
That's actually, because we talk about the combine interviews where you only get 15 to 20 minutes. It's very structured. Most teams ask the same questions, and then obviously the players know what questions are coming. You get kind of canned answers. So you try and come up with some different outside the box questions just to get something different from the player in those meetings. That's actually not a bad one right there.
But was there anything that frustrated you in your role, like whether it was with staff or the job in general?
Oh my gosh, probably on a daily basis. You just got to work through it. It's our job to have answers rather than just always coming up with, complaints or problems, which you tend to get. Like, the one thing it's hard being a college scout where you're on the road, you're looking at college players for the following year, yet you're watching your team play every Sunday. And then you tend to have a lot of opinions of what your team should be doing, right? As a college scout, you're spending Saturday usually watching the game on TV somewhere. And you call your director, you call a GM, hey, how come we're not playing so-and-so? Hey, how come we're running the ball on third down right here? And it would get, hey, look, trying to explain, hey, look, you're not here every day. Yeah. You don't know the game plan. You don't know who's practicing well. You don't know who's been used. So, but you also hey, that college scout, he wants to win like you do. He's putting everything he can into it. And he wants to have an opinion. So you have to listen to it for a little bit. But I'd give a little bit of time to that, but after that, it's like, hey, we all have our roles. Your role right now is to go find us players for 2026. right? And our coach's role right now is to get us to win right now.
Buck,
so,
we never did that. Buck.
No,
we were supportive. Hey, I'm glad we're not
playing.
playing. I'm glad we're not playing our talented young players. Let's keep playing those veterans that know what to do and stink. You know what? Let's just keep losing games. This is so much fun out here on the road as I'm away from my family.
It is.
What's funny is some of those players they complain about are players that we drafted maybe a couple of years ago. Like, hey, wait, weren't you standing on the table for that offensive lineman 3 years ago?
It changes. The wind can change quick. All right, Tom, let's get into some football stuff. What's going on in the league right now? New England is a team we've been talking about a lot, and people can look at the schedule, say whatever they want to say. The record, you are who your record says you are. They're playing great. Bucky and I have been, looking at the fact that, man, 2 years. If you can get it right in 2 years, in terms of within a 2 year period, if you can get the head coach, the quarterback, in one of those 2 years, you ace the draft, which they definitely did this year. It can turn, man. Wherever you think a franchise is, it can turn within a couple years.
It's turned quick. I mean, if they had 6 wins right now, I'd be surprised. But having 9, I thought they were still a year or two away. I did a lot of NFL radio on Sirius XM this summer, talked about the Patriots, all their changes. And I'm like, look, I still think they're a year or two away. And then they lost opening day to the Raiders. It kind of validated kind of what I thought. Like, look, they're just not there yet. They'll be okay, but they're not there yet. But obviously they are. And nobody builds a culture faster than Vrabel. Mm-hmm. And then you pair that with Elliott Wolf. Elliott knows talent. And like I said, this has gone fast. Now, having the quarterback helps. That helps accelerate things. But they've got probably minimum 5 starters out of the draft this year, which is basically amazing to do. 2 offensive linemen with Campbell and Wilson, and Travion Henderson. They got the kicker, Borregala, so that's 4. And then the safety, Woodson. That's 5 starters from the draft. So that allowed them to really trade 2 good players, Kyle Duggar and Keon White, who probably just didn't fit the scheme anymore. And then defensively, they really bought a defense through free agency, which rarely works. Mm-hmm. But if you get your evals right and you spend the money the right way, which is, again, hard to do in free agency, they hit on it. And they're like a top 5 defense right now. And some of that scheme, but a lot of that's the players too. So when you see that quick a turnaround, I think if you're an owner of a team that's, struggling,
it's not that hard. Why aren't we doing that?
Like, hey, look, the Patriots just did it. And I know, like in baseball, like the rebuilds take 2 or 3 years because you got to, restart the farm system and move players up, and it takes time. But in football, once you get the quarterback, they're kind of proving that turnaround can be a lot quicker than you think. And they're 9-2. They've played who they can play this year, but they've been impressive on both sides of the ball.
Tom, you mentioned something that I've always been fascinated by. Like, I think Mike Vrabel is an outstanding coach. Like, because I feel like in Tennessee, there were years he did the most with the least, and they were always competitive and edgy and those things. You mentioned about him being a guy that builds a culture unlike anybody else. Can you just talk about it from a general manager view? What is it about Mike Vrabel that helps him connect with players or establish the culture right away? Because I'm fascinated by his success.
I think the first part you just said is just, the connection with players, because you're connecting with all different players, not just defense, not just offense. And you got younger players, older players coming from all over the country, all different thoughts and beliefs, but you have to pull them together as a team. But he just has that trait, that team building, team bonding, and then holding accountability trait. And then, you combine that with really good players. But I think having the playing background it can always help. He's been in their shoes, and not as a top draft pick, and not as a blue chip player either. He was a tough, he's an overachiever really as a player, but a highly productive player. But had to earn everything he could in the NFL, and he learned the right way in the Patriot system as a player. So I think that carries over. But I think it's just that connection to his players. I mean, you can see how they react to him, how hard they play for him, and you either have that trait or you don't. He obviously has it.
Yeah, I think about it. Hard pressed to find a guy who comes in with more clout and credibility with an owner and a fan base. He'd already established all that, so I mean, he had the whole entire operation in terms of the city and the organization all behind him, knowing that this guy's a winner, and he's done it previously at Tennessee as well as what he did as a player there in New England. But it's been an incredible turnaround there. The other one I wanted to hit you on was one of the openings that we have. Brian Daboll got let go. The Giants can be looking for a head coach this offseason. when I was kind of looking at it, I know, look, it's not the easiest market in the world. They've spit out a lot of talented guys as players and executives and coaches. But Tom, you look, they got a quarterback, they got a left tackle, they got edge rushers, they got a DT, they got a big time receiver, they got a running back. I think this is a pretty attractive head coaching job, man. What do you think?
I agree, because number one, they have the quarterback, and I think he's going to be a big time player for them, and that's where it all starts. To me, the thing I can't figure out this year is, I agree with you, like, they have players on defense. I thought their front seven was going to be outstanding this year. They just haven't played like that, but there's talent on that side of the ball. They have some talent in the secondary, but to me, the strength of their team, I thought, was going to be on the defensive front. And then they've got linebackers who can really run and have range. But you're right. They have a lot of pieces, starting with the quarterback. They have Neighbors coming back off injured reserve. He'll be back next year. They have a left tackle. They have a running back. I mean, Scadaboo, he brought an identity to that offense that they had not had. And I think he can be a real starting running back in this league. He's shown that. You just have to pair him probably with another player with a little more juice, a little more speed. But again, you want to play more than one back anyways. The offensive line is the thing that's going to have to be
rebuilt. The draft.
Yeah, and that's going to have to be through the draft. I mean, it's the same starting five as in 2024, and they struggled that year, and they ran it back with the same group. That's going to have to be improved through the draft. It's hard in free agency, just because if teams have good offensive linemen, obviously they don't want to part with them. So it's just hard, and you'll never find a starting tackle in free agency. Usually, maybe a guard or center, but that's going to be a project for the offseason. But they have some skill position players. They have a quarterback. They have talent on defense. It's a tremendous organization in the way they handle things. Family run, classy organization, and it's in New York. So yeah, it's going to be a very coveted job.
Buck, real quick. I mean, if you've got the left tackle, Chicago would be a great litmus test. Like, look at. I mean, they rebuilt the interior of that offensive line. I mean, I think that's something where you get the right tackle in the draft. Go draft yourself a tackle, and then just be aggressive on interior offensive line.
Yeah, look, when you look at them, you talk about the offensive line and those things. DJ, we had a conversation, and Tom, this would be good to get your perspective. We talked about that job might be a job for someone who has had the job before, meaning a coach who's been a head coach before in the National Football League, understands the way of operating. But I want to ask you, Tom, as a general manager, if you're thinking about taking someone who has already been a head coach before, what are you looking for in that interview or during the process to show the growth from their first experience to what they would bring maybe the second or third time around?
Yeah, I guess you would talk about, there's a reason why they're not employed right now. So you probably want to talk about what happened in their last job that kind of led to that. And yeah, what growth has happened from then till now to make sure that doesn't happen again. Now, every situation is going to be different. But certainly with the head coach that's done it before, the interview process it's a lot smoother. They've been through the process many times before. They've been in that seat. They've been in that job. So there's a lot of questions that you can kind of get through pretty quickly in the interview process that you probably would have to hit more with a first-time head coach. But you can really get into, if they've been out for a year, been out for 2 years, or if they've now gone back to being a coordinator and now want to come and then you're interviewing for a head coaching job, where's the growth and what would you do differently? What would you do the same? I think that'd be a big part of the interview process. And I think for the Giants job, to me, the biggest question you're going to ask, a potential head coach is, all right, how do you want to handle Jackson Dart? What kind of style do you, because obviously he has a style of how he likes to play. It's just not conducive for keeping him healthy. I mean, he's not the size of Josh Allen. He's got decent bulk, but he's not 6'4", 6'5", 240. So how do you want to use him, and how are you going to get that through to the quarterback? Because, every player says, hey, look, this is my style. This is how I want to play. But no, you're going to play our style. We're going to keep you healthy and we're going to win games, but we're going to have to change a little bit of how we do this. So what's your plan for the quarterback and how you're going to handle this to keep them, ready to play for 17 games?
When you were interviewing coaches, did you ever get anything from those interviews that could help your operation? Maybe you didn't hire that coach, but there was something you learned. Hey, tell me how you do things where you are or where you've been. A lot of these guys are coordinators for successful teams that are interviewing. Did you ever take anything from them and then incorporate it in your own organization?
Well, you learn a lot in the interview. So I think certainly, yes. But some of the things I liked the most was because you usually spend a lot of time talking about your own team and asking the person you're interviewing, basically, what do you think of our players? Who do we have? Who do you like? Who do you think we need to upgrade from? I think that's always helpful to get an outside perspective from somebody else of your own players. But you cover so much through the process, even down to, how you travel. If we're a West Coast team, do you like to travel Friday to go to the East Coast? Do you like to travel Saturday to go to the East Coast? Things like that. So, yeah, there's certainly things you can pull out from the interviews that even if you don't hire the coach, it may help you down the road. The interview process was fascinating. It was fun to do because you get a chance to meet a lot of coaches that I had not have ever had, one-on-one time with, or a group had never had one-on-one time with. And I mean, football's football. Like, there's just so much to learn that's out there that the game's changing constantly and people do different things. So that's a great place to learn.
Tom, I want to ask you this before I let you go. So I think it's interesting. We talked about at the beginning of the segment, we talked about how long the season is. And now there are like 7 or so games left. As a general manager, is there anything that you're thinking about doing to enhance your roster as you get ready for the stretch run? For instance, when I was in Green Bay, Ron Wolf would always find a veteran that was out there. He may not be able to play, but he had either Super Bowl experience or significant expertise to be able to help the young guys to get ready for the postseason. Did you ever have anything in your bag that you're thinking about, hey, the final month of the season, I want to make sure I have somebody on the team or something that I do to help our team maximize their potential?
Yeah, I guess probably a little bit different. I'd be wary about signing a veteran right now who was not on a team throughout the year. Now, if he was somewhere and in shape, ready to go, it'd be different. But what we used to concentrate on is a lot of your young players and practice squad players from August into September is to get those guys ready because we may need them in November and December. Like, they're not ready to play in September and October anyways. But once you get into November, December, January, if you have injuries and you need injury replacements, there's very little places to go. If you try and get another practice squad player, at that point of the year, most practice squad players have already been brought up to the active roster that have, NFL traits. So a lot of practice squads are picked over at that point. So you usually have what you have. So it was big on making sure we're developing our younger players on our practice squad so they're ready to go late in the year to kind of keep the system going. And then I didn't get a chance to do it with the Raiders, but I'd done it with the Chargers a couple of times. Around Thanksgiving, I'd go in on Tuesday morning. It was a player's day off, but a lot of our rookies would be in for some player engagement, life skills type meetings. I'd go in and meet with all the rookies and just talk to them about, hey, post-Thanksgiving, like, it gets hard right now. It's hard on your bodies. It's such a long season. You're not used to this. It gets hard mentally. And just talk to them about the process and that, this is normal. If you're going through some tough times right now, it's normal as a young player because we're going to need these young guys late in the year. If you get lucky at the trade deadline, you may be able to get a veteran in that can maybe help a little bit. But to go sign somebody right now off the street, hadn't been at training camp, I'd have a hard time doing that. But you got to get the young guys ready to go.
That's a great point. Last one for me, Tom, I'll let you go. How have you enjoyed being a casual watcher of football this year?
I was just telling somebody this yesterday. I love Sundays. Just watching games from, West Coast wise with the international games from 6:30 a.m. until 8:30 p.m. To watch this many games and not have to worry about who wins or who loses. I root for certain people in the league that I know, but it's not like it was before where every game is life or death. Not only our games, but the teams in our division. And you're always worrying about something else. And so to sit back as a fan and watch all these games, it's incredible. I absolutely love it. There's nothing better than Sundays just doing this. And hopefully I'll be working again at some point. It won't always be like this, but I'm enjoying it right now.
He's just like all of us. You know what I mean? We all are just football fans at heart, and it's fun to take in a ball game and doesn't affect your life all that much. Who wins or who loses, just get a chance to enjoy a nice football game. When we get to each and every Sunday, Tom, it's not a bad gig, man.
No, it is not.
That's fantastic. All right. You're the best, Tom. We appreciate you giving us as much time as you have. We'll do this down the road again. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks, Buck. Thanks, DJ.
There he goes, Buck. Tom Telesco, great friend, a great dude, and a great football mind. Fun to just kind of go where you want to go. I mean, talking about scouting, we can nerd out on that stuff, as well as some of the other topics that are pertinent to what's going on in the league right now.
Yeah, look, tremendous amount of success. He has so much knowledge, and like you said, in the need of Bill Polian for a long time. And so being able to take all that, what he learned from a Hall of Fame executive, what he learned as a general manager for two different franchises, it's great to tap into that. as a resource.
I don't know how you were, but I remember, like, to me, the difference wasn't watching the NFL games when I was done. It was watching how different it was to watch college games, because when you were watching college games, you were just looking at the guys that you would watch tape on. So I'm just watching like this. They have a left tackle prospect. So I'm going to watch a college game, and I don't even really notice the game. I'm just watching him every snap on TV. And you didn't really appreciate the entirety of the game. You're just watching specific players. And I know obviously we're still in the draft space and we get time to get to those guys.
Yes.
But it was fun for me just to I can just kind of take it all in and just watch the game. It's kind of fun.
No, it's fun. And if you are a football fan, and we are noted football junkies, there's so much diversity within the game in terms of, particularly on Saturdays, style of play, how people go about playing offense and defense, the type of players that are playing quarterback position and those things. I'm just fascinated by the many different ways that people are able to win games. And same thing is like on Sundays, because he talked about like Sunday Fun Day, like when you aren't affiliated and you can just watch the games from 6:30 a.m. on the West Coast all the way at night. It's just fun watching the game without having to have something hanging in the balance on whether the outcome goes your way or not.
Hey, no doubt. Well, again, thanks to Tom Telesco for joining us. We'll have him on here as we come down the home stretch of the season and head towards the off season as well. That's going to do it for us. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.